It was a cold and quiet night on planet EOS-9. Most people were asleep. The stars outside were shining brightly, and the moons were full. In one small house near the edge of the colony, everything was calm until a soft sound broke the silence. Zura, the alien maid, opened her large green eyes. She had been resting in her small room, but something felt wrong. Her long, pointed ears twitched. A strange sound, like a whisper, had reached her mind, not her ears. It was not normal. She slowly stood up and looked at the hallway. Everything seemed quiet, but she felt something moving in the boy's room, the human boy she worked for. Zura was not just any maid. She belonged to the Luran species, an old alien race known for their deep senses and quiet strength. She had worked in the house for 3 years, cleaning, cooking, and making sure the boy was safe. The boy, named Kai, was kind and friendly, about 19 years old. He had no family on this planet, but tonight, something was different. Zura stepped softly on the cold floor. She walked toward Kai's room. The door was slightly open. She pushed it gently. Inside, the room was dark, only the blue moonlight coming through the window gave it a soft glow. Kai was lying in bed, still and quiet. At first, Zura thought he was asleep, but then she saw a dot above Kai's bed. Something was floating in the air. It looked like a shadow, but it had a shape. A small black figure, round and shifting, with tiny lights inside it. It moved slowly, like it was studying Kai. And then it whispered again. This time Zura heard it clearly. Zura, protector. Double quotes. Her body froze. That voice. It spoke the old Luran language, a language that no one used anymore, a language from before the fall of her planet. Zura took one step back. The creature turned slightly. Its tiny lights blinked like eyes. It had no mouth, no face, but Zura felt it looking at her. What are you? She asked softly, her voice shaking. The shadow didn't answer. Instead, it floated closer to Kai's chest. Suddenly, a mark appeared on his skin. A glowing symbol, circular, with lines crossing like stars. Zura gasped. She had seen that mark before. Long ago, on her home planet, there were stories of a child with a starburn mark. A child who would bring balance or chaos to the galaxy. That mark, it was real. And now it was on Kai. Zura's heart raced. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. Her mind was full of questions. Why did the shadow know her name? Why did Kai have that mark? Was he the child from the stories? Did he even know who he was? She took another slow step back. Suddenly, Kai's body moved. Not much, just a twitch, but enough to make Zura jump. His eyes opened slightly, glowing the same soft blue as the mark on his chest. But they didn't look like his eyes. Zura, Kai whispered, but the voice was not his. It was deeper, older, full of echo. He is not ready yet. But the time is near. Zura couldn't breathe. The shadow turned once more and slowly faded into the ceiling, leaving no trace behind. Kai's body relaxed and he closed his eyes. Again, like nothing had happened. Zura stood there, shocked and silent. The room was quiet again. Only the sound of Kai's breathing filled the space. She backed out slowly and closed the door. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding. Something had changed tonight, something big. And she knew this was only the beginning. She walked back to her small room and sat down on the edge of her bed. Her mind was racing. Who was Kai really? What did that shadow want? And why did it call her protector? She looked out the small window. The moon still shone brightly in the sky, peaceful and calm. But Zura knew that peace wouldn't last long. Something was coming, something from the past, and she would have to face it, whether she was ready or not. The door clicked shut behind her. Zura leaned her back against the wall, her hands cold, her thoughts louder than the silence around her. The voice was still in her head, not loud, not clear, but present, like a memory that refused to fade. She had seen strange things in her life. She had escaped a dying planet, lived among humans, worked as a servant for 3 years. But never had she faced something like this. Something that spoke a language buried in the ashes of history, and worse. It knew her name. She pressed her hand against her chest, just over her heart. Her skin felt warm, but not from fear, from memory. Her people, the Luran, were once warriors, protectors of ancient knowledge. But after the fall of the Star Cities, they were hunted and scattered. Now they lived quiet lives, as if they lived at all. Zura had spent years trying to forget her past, the sounds of her planet's burning sky, the screams, the fall of the Great Tower, the night she was given a mission she never wanted. Protect the hybrid child, hide him, even from himself. She was young back then, too young to understand. But she remembered the mark, the one now glowing on Kai's chest. Zura walked slowly to the kitchen. Her hands moved without thinking, making warm tea not for comfort, but to ground herself. She sat at the small table, staring at the steam dot. How could she have not seen it before? Kai looked human, spoke human, laughed like them. But now she understood the strange things he sometimes said in his sleep. The way electronics reacted around him, the dreams. Yes, the dreams. He once told her, Zura, I keep dreaming about floating cities and burning skies. I see faces I don't know, and they call me by a different name. She had smiled back then, told him it was nothing. But inside, she had feared the day when those dreams would become real. And now that day had come. Suddenly, she felt it again, a soft energy like a breath in the air, not in the room. Inside her head. You forgot who you were. Zura stood up quickly, knocking the cup over. The tea spilled silently on the floor, but she didn't look down. Her eyes were on the hallway. The voice wasn't Kai's. It wasn't the shadows either. It was someone else. Someone from before. Zura closed her eyes. You're dead, she whispered. But the voice only answered, and yet here we are. Back in the bedroom, Kai was not sleeping anymore. His eyes were closed, but his body was tense. His fingers moved slightly, as if he were holding something invisible. His breathing had changed slower, deeper. Inside his mind, a storm was forming. Flashes of light. 2 moons rising above a black ocean. A group of warriors in silver armor. A woman who looked like Zura, but older. Calling his name, but not Kai. Kalran. The name echoed inside his chest. He opened his eyes. The room looked normal. Again, no shadow, no glow. But he remembered, not everything. Just a piece. And that was enough to scare him. He sat up, looked around, and whispered, What am I? Zura didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window, watching the stars shift in the sky. Each one held a story. A war, a secret, and one of them had sent that shadow to her. Morning came slowly on Eos 9. The sky turned violet before turning gold. The soft hum of life returned to the colony outside. Kai stepped into the kitchen. His hair was messy, his eyes quiet. Zura didn't speak first. He sat across from her. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then Kai asked, Zura, have I always been me? She didn't lie. No, she said softly. You haven't. He didn't seem surprised. I saw something, he said. A mark. Floating cities. Fire. Zura nodded. That was real. Kai took a deep breath. Why? Me? Zura looked down at her hands. They were shaking again. Because, she whispered, you are not just human. You're something older. Something that wasn't supposed to exist anymore. Kai was quiet. Zura leaned forward. And now that it has awakened, others will come. They will search for you. Kai looked at the window. A ship flew past in the sky, calm and peaceful. He knew that peace wouldn't last. Then we need to find out what I am, he said. Zura looked into his eyes. No, she replied. We need to find out who you were. Asterisk, the wind outside was quiet, but inside Kai's head, everything was loud. He sat alone in his room, staring at his hands like they were strangers. Last night felt like a dream, but the mark on his chest was still there, faint but glowing. It didn't hurt. It pulsed, like it was breathing. He touched it gently. A memory flashed. Flames, a tower falling. Soldiers shouting in a language he didn't know but understood. Protect the air. He stood up quickly, heart racing. He didn't know what air meant, but somehow it felt like it was meant for him. Down the hallway, Zura stood by the wall, listening. She could feel the shift in him. Not just in his energy, but in his presence. Like the Kai she knew was no longer alone inside that body. He was waking up. The real one. The forgotten one. Zura closed her eyes. She remembered the stories whispered to Lurin children. One day, a child born of stars and blood will rise. He will carry the voice of both worlds. She never thought that child would be in her care. That he would laugh at her jokes, leave socks everywhere, and ask for extra sugar in his tea. She smiled sadly. He was changing, and time was running out. Kai opened his closet and pulled out a small box from the top shelf. It was dusty old. He hadn't touched it in years. Inside were things from his childhood, photos, drawings, a few old letters. One photo caught his eye. A woman smiling, holding a baby. Her eyes were sharp, strange, not quite human. Kai stared at her. Who are you? He whispered. Suddenly, he heard Zura's voice behind him. That's not your mother. He turned around, surprised. Zura stepped inside. Her face was calm, but her eyes were full of weight. Kai held up the photo. Then who is she? Zura walked over and took the photo gently. She was your guardian. A Lurin warrior. She died protecting you. Kai frowned. But I thought that your parents died in a shuttle crash. That's what the humans were told. She looked at him. The truth is much older. Much heavier. Kai sat down. Zura placed the photo back in the box. You were born during the last days of the Star War. A war the humans never knew about. A war between the last Starburn race and the Shadows. Kai blinked. Starburn? Like the voice last night? Zura nodded. Yes, you are not fully human, Kai. You are half Lurin. Half something older. Something powerful. Kai stood up, pacing now. I don't understand. Why hide it? Why me? Zura looked up at him. Because your bloodline is royal. Your ancestors were guardians of the ancient keys, artifacts that can awaken or destroy entire worlds. You were the last born, the last heir. Kai stopped. Heir to what? Zura's voice became quiet. To a dead empire. There was silence. Then Kai walked to the desk. He pulled out a pen and paper. He didn't know why, but his hand moved. On its own, he began to draw circles, symbols, lines crossing each other like stars and roads. It didn't make sense. Until it did. Zura watched in shock. Kai, that's a star map. Kai looked at it. It's in my head. I don't know how, but when I close my eyes I see it. Zura leaned over the paper. She pointed at one symbol, this ... This is the lost sector. No one goes there. It was destroyed long ago. Kai touched the circle. But I think I was there. The air in the room changed. Zura turned her head sharply. She sensed it. Something was watching them. Not from outside. From above. She looked up and saw a tiny crack of light forming in the ceiling. Not physical light. Something else. A signal. She grabbed Kai's arm. We have to leave, now. Kai didn't argue. For the first time, he trusted the fear in her eyes. Minutes later, they were packing essentials into a small hovercraft. Food, maps, tools. The strange map Kai had drawn. Before they left, Kai turned to Zura. "One last question." Zura nodded. Kai looked at her. "Is my name really Kai?" Zura hesitated. Then whispered, "Your real name is Kelrin. The boy was just a cover." "But Kale, he's waking up now." Kale took a deep breath. He stepped into the hovercraft, and as the engines began to hum, the mark on his chest glowed brighter than before. Something was calling him, and this time, he was ready to follow it. The ship hummed beneath. Their feet, small, fast, silent. Zura sat at the controls, eyes locked on the dark sky ahead. Kai sat behind her, holding the star map he had drawn by instinct, his fingers tracing the strange lines again and again. Outside, the world of HFY shrank behind them. No alarms, no chase, but something still followed. Not a ship, not a signal, a feeling. The sky grew darker the deeper they went into space. Not because of night, there was no night here. Just endless stars. But then, the stars began to disappear, one by one, like someone was turning them off. Zura's voice broke the silence. "We're entering the lost zone." Kai leaned forward. "Why is it called that?" She didn't look at him. "Because ships go in and never come out." The map had led them to a sector erased from most star charts. It was a wound in space, quiet, cold, forgotten. Once, it was home to the Starburn High Council. Now nothing lived here, or so they thought. Zura adjusted the ship's path, eyes sharp. "I've only heard stories. This place was destroyed in the last battle. The enemy didn't just kill people, they burned memories." Kai stared out the window. "But something's left, isn't it?" He didn't know how he knew, but he knew. Suddenly the ship jerked. The lights flickered. Zura. Cursed in Luran tongue. "The systems, they're not responding," the engines whined. Then stopped. Silence. Complete. Floating in the dark. No power. No control. And then, a signal. A soft sound like wind across metal. The screen lit up with a strange symbol, Kai's. Mark. Glowing. Matching. "It's calling us," Kai whispered. Zura looked at him. "Not calling," she said. "Pulling." Outside the window, a shape appeared. A massive structure floating in the black. Not a building, a ruin. Half destroyed, its walls cracked open. But still, glowing from inside. Not with light. With memory. Kai felt his chest burn softly. The mark was reacting. "That place," he whispered. "I've been there." Zura turned sharply. "Impossible." Kai stood slowly. "I remember the stairs, the fire. I ran through that hallway." His voice changed as he spoke, deeper, more sure. Not guessing. Remembering. Zura stared at him. He was changing again. They drifted closer. The ship's engines were still dead. But something unseen was guiding them. Into the ruins' docking bay. The landing was silent. The ship door opened with a soft hiss. No wind. No welcome. Just quiet. And something watching. They stepped inside. The floor was cold metal, cracked and dusty. Old banners hung from the high ceilings, symbols that hadn't been seen in 100 years. Kai looked up. "This was a temple," Zura nodded slowly. "Yes, a place of oaths. My people came here to swear loyalty." Kai touched the wall. It felt warm, alive. He closed his eyes and saw it all. Fire, screams, a man holding a sword made of light. Shadows falling from the ceiling like smoke. A voice yelling his name, Kelrin. His eyes snapped open. Zura grabbed his arm. "What did you see?" He looked at her, pale, sweating. "War. This place burned because of me." Zura didn't deny it. "You were the target. Not a soldier, a threat." Kai looked at her. "I was a child." Zura's voice was low. "They feared what you would become." Suddenly, a sound echoed through the ruin. Footsteps. Not metal. Not human. They turned fast, weapons ready. Out of the shadows came a figure. Tall, armored, one eye glowing. Red. Not a machine. Not alive. Something in between. Zura whispered, a guardian. The figure spoke in an ancient voice. You have returned, Calren. At last. Kai stepped forward. Who are you? The guardian's voice echoed. I was left behind to wait. To remember. To guard the last memory of your kind. Zura frowned. You mean, there's no one else? The guardian looked at her. Then back at Kai. No, he is the last, but the blood remembers. He turned and pointed to a door deep inside the ruin. Your truth waits in the Hall of Echoes. But once you enter, the past will not stay quiet. Kai looked at Zura. Do I go alone? Zura shook her head. No, not this time. They stepped forward, toward the door, toward the echoes, toward the truth, and far above, in the dark part of the galaxy, something opened its eyes. The hybrid had awakened. And now, the hunt would begin. Asterisk. The doors opened without touch. No lock. No key. Just presence. As Kai stepped inside the Hall of Echoes, the air changed. It was heavier. Like the room had been waiting to breathe until he arrived. Zura followed close behind, her eyes scanning every shadow. Her blade was ready, though she hoped she wouldn't need it. Inside, the chamber looked empty. No throne. No walls. Just space. And whispers. Kai walked forward. The walls around him flickered like glass touched by wind. Each flicker showed something, a memory, maybe, or a warning. A crying child, a burning starship, a woman with eyes like his screaming his name, Calren. He stopped. Zura whispered, Do you see it too? Kai nodded. I think they're my memories. Zura frowned. But you were a baby. Kai looked at his hands. Not all memories are in the mind, some live in blood. Suddenly, the center of the room lit up. A spiral of light formed from thin air, slow, silent, spinning like a calm storm. From within it stepped a figure, not a ghost, not a machine, something. A humanoid form, made of light and armor. No face. No voice. But presence. It raised a hand and time paused. Zura couldn't move. Only Kai could speak. The figure spoke not with words, but with emotion. A deep voice echoed inside Kai's head. To carry the past. You must pass through it. Kai blinked. What does that mean? The figure turned. Suddenly, the chamber transformed. Gone were the walls of glass and memory. Now they stood in a burning city. People ran. Ships fell from the sky. Fires raged, but no heat touched Kai. He looked around. This is... The figure finished his sentence without lips. The day you were lost. Zura tried to move, and this time she could. She gasped as she saw the city. She whispered, This is the Luran capital. The day it fell. Kai looked at her. Were you there? She nodded, eyes dark with old pain. Double quotes. Yes, and so were you. Suddenly Kai saw her, a Luran woman holding a baby him. She was running through fire, blood on her face, holding him tight against her chest. A dark shadow followed her, with silver eyes and razor-thin wings. Zura whispered, That's my sister. Your protector before me. Kai's heart pounded. She died, saving me. The vision shifted again. Now Kai stood inside a hidden chamber. 5 tall alien figures stood around a cradle, each placing a glowing object inside. One by one, they whispered, Power, memory, burden, hope, fear. The last one looked directly at Kai, though the memory shouldn't see him. It whispered, And now, your choice. The vision broke. They were back in the Hall of Echoes. The spiral vanished. The figure stepped closer to Kai and spoke again. You are not chosen. You were made. Kai took a step back. What do you mean? The guardian's voice grew heavier. You are a creation of balance, part warrior, part weapon. But inside you, there is still a child. You must decide who wins. Zura stepped forward. Why now? Why awaken him now? The Guardian turned to her. Because the ones who destroyed your world have returned. They seek the hybrid. They seek him. Suddenly, the chamber shook. Alarms lit up on Zura's wrist device. She looked at Kai. We've been found. The Guardian raised his arm, and a small crystal floated from his palm. It hovered in front of Kai's chest and dissolved into the glowing mark. Take what you've seen, the Guardian said. But remember, truth is not the same as peace. The floor beneath them lit up. A teleport pad. The Guardian raised one final hand. Run now, but next time you fight. In a flash of white light, Kai and Zura were gone. The Hall of Echoes fell silent once more, and far above, in deep space, a black ship tore through the void, its captain smiling. The hybrid is awake, he said, and this time, he dies before he learns who he really is. Asterisk, the wind outside the bunker howled like it remembered something. Something old. Something broken. Kai sat in silence, his back against the cold wall. The glowing mark on his chest flickered like a weak signal, alive, but uncertain. He had seen too much in too little time. Memories that weren't his. Battles he had never fought. Name that didn't feel like his, but echoed in every corner of the galaxy. Kale. Ren. He wasn't just a boy anymore, and that terrified him. Zura entered the room, her cloak covered in dust. She tossed a datapad onto the table. It showed a black fleet moving across star systems like spilled ink. They've started the sweep, she said quietly. Looking for you. Kai didn't look up. What happens when they find me? Zura answered without emotion. They burn. Everything until they do. For hours, silence returned. Zura sat across from him, watching the fire crackle in the center of the room. She had seen war. She had lost her people, her home, her name even. But nothing scared her more than this moment. Because Kai still hadn't chosen. He was part Lurin, part something far older, and somewhere in between was a sleeping power. If he opened that door, there was no going back. That night, Kai had another dream, but this one didn't feel like a dream. He stood in a black field under a burning red sky. In front of him were two versions of himself. One wore white robes, hands glowing with light. The other wore black armor, eyes like fire. They stared at each other, then at him. The one in white spoke. You are the bridge. Choose peace. The one in black whispered. You were made for war. Stop pretending you weren't. Kai screamed and woke up. His chest was burning. Literally. Zura rushed into the room. The mark on his chest had changed. It was no longer just glowing. It was pulsing like a heartbeat. Kai, what happened? He couldn't speak. He stood, walked to the mirror, and looked at himself. But it wasn't just himself he saw. Behind his reflection stood the Guardian, and behind the Guardian stood a shadow with wings made of smoke. Zura whispered, They've found us. A blast shook the bunker. Dust fell from the ceiling. Sirens screamed. Zura grabbed her weapon. Kai didn't move. Another explosion. Closer. The lights flickered. The sound of heavy metal footsteps approached. Kai looked at her. His eyes glowed faintly. I don't want to fight, he said. Zura grabbed his arm. You don't get to want anything anymore. You have to choose. Right now. The wall exploded. Black-armored soldiers stormed in. Weapons drawn. Zura fired first. 3 dropped instantly. But there were more. Too many. She turned to Kai. Now would be a good time to glow. Boy. Kai's hands trembled. A bullet flew past his head. Another blast hit Zura's side. She dropped, groaning, clutching her ribs. Something snapped inside Kai. He stood. Hands raised, eyes closed, and the world around him bent. Shockwave blasted from his chest. Soldiers flew backward, slammed against walls, and fell silent. Weapons melted into slag. The ground cracked under his feet. The fire in his eyes wasn't just light. It was memory. Ancient, wild, Alive. Zura, injured and gasping, looked up. Kai? He turned. No, he said. I am Kelren. Silence returned, but not for long. Zura coughed. They'll come again. In bigger numbers. Kale nodded. His voice was calm. Let them. Outside, the Black Fleet shifted course. A voice on the command bridge spoke in a low, cold tone. The hybrid has awakened. Another asked, should we send the Voidborn? The captain smiled. No, not yet. Let him think he's winning. It'll make his fall more meaningful. Back in the bunker, Zura stared at Kale. He stood taller now, stronger, like something ancient had finally stopped sleeping. But she knew. This was only his first step into what he truly was. And the war? It hadn't even started yet. Asterisk space was burning. Not from fire, from war. Two fleets clashed in the orbit of the dead world, lights blinking like dying stars. Explosions echoed like drums of a forgotten god. But on the surface, the real battle had already begun. Kale stood at the edge of the ruins, the mark on his chest now fully awake, a symbol of everything he was and everything he could destroy. Behind him, Zura limped through the dust, wounded but alive. You don't have to do this alone, she said. Her voice cracked but firm. Kale didn't answer, because he wasn't sure if he was alone anymore. Something was speaking inside him, louder now, clearer, a voice older than stars. A voice that carried his name like a crown or a curse. The child is gone. The weapon remains. What will you choose, Kelren? In the distance, the enemy was coming. The Voidborn, wings like shadows, skin like glass, eyes like hunger. Not machines, not men. They were silence given shape. Creatures built to erase bloodlines, not win wars. And they wanted him. Zura stepped beside. Kale, I saw them kill my people, my sister, my world. She looked at him. But I've never been more afraid than I am of you. Kale looked at his hands. They weren't glowing anymore. They were trembling. I'm afraid too, he said. Ground shook. From the sky descended their leader, not a soldier, but the architect of the Voidborn. A tall being wrapped in shadow and whispers. He spoke without a mouth. You were never meant to live. Kelren, you are a mistake. An accident of light and flesh. Kale stepped forward. His voice was calm. No, I'm a choice. One you're about to regret. The final battle wasn't a fight. It was a moment. The architect lunged, faster than light. Kale closed his eyes and remembered everything. His mother's face. The cradle of stars. The oaths of the 5 counselors. The scream of Zura's sister as she died to save him. And then power. Not just energy. Understanding that he wasn't a weapon. He was a bridge. When he opened his eyes, there was no light. There was peace. Everything slowed. The Voidborn stopped in the air. The architect's body cracked, split, and turned to ash. Kale stood tall, calm, complete. Behind him, the mark on his chest disappeared. He no longer needed it, because he was the key. Now Zura fell to her knees, eyes wide. It's over, she said. Kale turned to her. No, he replied. It's just beginning. She looked confused. What do you mean? Kale stared at the sky. There are others, hidden, broken, like me. He touched the ground, and with a breath, the dead earth began to glow, faintly, like it was remembering how to live. I'm not just here to fight, he said. I'm here to wake the forgotten. Later that night, Zura stood alone by the old ruins. The wind had changed. Quieter. But heavier. She looked up at the stars and whispered, Where did you go? There was no answer. But in the air, a glowing message formed, just for her. I'll return, when the stars need me again. She smiled through tears. Typical. And just like that, Kelren, the hybrid, the air, the bridge, was gone. Not dead. Not vanished. Just waiting. Because peace never lasts. But neither does darkness.